Rogers TV.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hi, and welcome back to Third Eye View. Today, my guest is Kerri O'Donnell, and Kerri's from the States. Now, first of all, a friend of mine did an interview with Kerri for a documentary that she's working on, told Kerri about me, told me about Kerri. I contacted Kerri, and that's how we met. But one of the things that, and we will talk about the documentary a little bit as well, but one of the things that really fascinated and caught my attention with Kerri is that she does soul writing or soul readings.
Soul writing.
Yeah, soul writing.
Readings for people.
Yes, and she does this for people. And she did a reading for me where she combined two different decks of cards. Would have been two different decks, I think. Was it?
A variety of decks, actually. I have maybe 6 or 7 different decks out, and I'm taking different cards from all the decks.
And I think that's great. I'd get all confused on it. So anyway, Kerri, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. Now, I think first of all, let's talk about this documentary that you're working on, because I do feel that this is something that's really important. And one of the things I want to touch on with it as well, and you don't have to say who said what, but some of the predictions that came out for post-COVID. So if you can, well, first of all, what inspired you to write this documentary?
Yeah, that would be a really good place to start, because what I want to go back just one step to explain what soul writing is, because I didn't coin the term. If you go and you can Google soul writing, you'll get Joanne DiMaggio, and she wrote a book. I believe she worked for the Edgar Cayce
Foundation
in Virginia. She's a very learned person. Her book is excellent. I recommend it to everybody. And she explained that soul writing was not quite automatic writing, but it was a sense of writing and channeling with a sense of purpose. Like, something's not taking over you, it's working through you. And then she coined the term. What I did is I studied, and I was always a journaler. I always channeled messages through my writing. And somehow in the last, I'd say, couple years, I started to integrate the cards with the soul writing and kind of merge them together. So the cards brought me some sense of messages, the symbolism that kind of triggered a way for me to write the messages. And then I created my own term, tarot soul writing. So I just wanted to be clear, it does fit into the documentary story, because as I started to write more messages, I was moving to a new state. I was born and bred in Massachusetts, and then I had started to move to New Hampshire. I knew the move was coming. I was receiving messages that this move would be a huge shift for me and that it would be important. And as I was preparing for that, I started taking a bunch of photographs in preparation for this move that I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I'm getting ready, right? So I'm getting all my old pictures and cleaning out my basement. And I started scanning all of my pictures, thinking it would be easier to move. And I started creating stories on video of each year of my life through pictures. And I created a 2020 picture story for myself, just based on my own life. And at the time, I felt like I was channeling the entire thing. It was the strangest, like, okay, this picture, this piece of music, this is how it all fits together. And then the pictures told me a story. And I felt like it was a healing journey. It was a healing journey even for me. It was a transition year. And that's when, through my soul writing, I was receiving messages, Kerri, you're going to do a documentary. You are going to actually collect the stories of other people like you collected your own story and you're going to put it all together. Now, you have to keep in mind, I am not a filmmaker. I'm just, I have a YouTube channel. I'm very creative. I love all that stuff, but it's not like I have the skills to actually do that. But when you get the call, you just go. You're like, okay, I'm doing a documentary. So I jumped right in. And that's sort of where I am now, in the collection of people's stories phase. So that's where we got to meet, because we got to interview and work through those questions and to talk about your year and what really stood out to you. Excuse me.
Yeah, and I mean, it was interesting. And, because you had sent me an email with some questions, questions, things to think about, things that I could talk about. And I started thinking, yeah, I did this and I did that. And I made some wonderful new friends and, all these good things. And what I found by doing that, it was more the good things, the positive things that I focused on rather than the negative.
Yeah, a lot of people have that experience. Without mentioning any names, I had one person I interviewed who was inspired to go through her own pictures and her own journal entries. And she found little nuggets of information, little moments for herself that she said surprised her. Also very positive, really measured her growth over that year.
Yeah.
I will say that experience isn't the same for all people. There's a wide diversity of experiences. There are some people that I invite. Like, for example, I have a very, very good friend. We've been friends like forever. And I thought this person would be a slam dunk to be in this documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And this person said, I have to take a step back here. Like, I'm not ready to go there. I don't want to relive that moment. I don't want to relive that time period. And so there are a lot of people who's, I don't want to share myself privately. I don't want to go into any kind of grief stage. So there's that reaction. And then I have people it's very cathartic. So when I ask questions about, did you lose someone? Or how did you experience grief? Suddenly they'll tell a story. I lost my best friend, or I lost my mother, or I lost my father. And then the emotion comes. So it's been very cathartic for some people.
Yeah, it would be. See, I didn't lose anybody. Anyone that I lost through death, I lost before 2020.
Right.
And I know for me, and there's one of the things, because of what I do, like as a psychic, and obviously it really affected my business, and I couldn't do readings in person, so I had to do them online. And there are some people who just were not comfortable with that idea because they preferred the one-on-one. And one of the biggest things was families that were separated and families that were torn apart over this because of different belief systems. And some of those families, they're still not back together.
Yes.
And that is still there. So in that way, I know I consider myself to be very lucky. Now, how long do you think, how much more work do you have to do on your documentary? Now I'm anxious to know when you're going to put it out.
I know. God, I wish I knew, but I do have sort of a timeline in my head. I really wanted originally to have this all done by the spring, because that's the anniversary time for a lockdown for many people. However, it became clear once I made the move here to New Hampshire. I'm in New Hampshire now, and then had to get everything up and running and start the process again. It was clear I had so much more work to do as far as the interviews.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm going to be interviewing people well into the spring. I'm thinking March or April. We'll see. I might cut off the interviews, the invites at the end of March, but then continue, into April to finish them. I'm having a combination of people who viewed videos, psychic videos, so they're viewers. And then I also have a lot of readers, which I call part of our spiritual community. And this particular community is the basis for part of this story. So we have everybody's 2020 stories, but also how we came together as a spiritual community, how people turn to, for example, YouTube for comfort when turning on the television was too much for them, how we all found like our people, our tribe, really worked on our own spiritual growth. That is really the ending of this film. And we're going to get a lot of different perspectives. I'm hoping that maybe we have this out by the American election period in November, because I feel like that would be a good, I think, segue time, because a lot of people who are worried about election issues around 2020, I think it might give them some comfort or reflection of where we are and where we're going. But I'm not 100% sure. I kind of get the message from my guides, it will be done when it's done.
Yeah. Now, I was given a time frame, a timeline for you, but again, they're telling me it is flexible. But I was told roughly, give or take, 6 months.
That would bring me pretty close to November, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was told. Not so much what you're given, but what you will be accomplishing. Because then when you've done this one, you've got to get ready to start your second one.
Yeah, so you've told me.
Yeah.
I was like,
but I didn't tell you about the third one that you're going to do too, did I?
no.
They're telling me that they actually may have you doing as many as 5, but then that would be it. Then they'll let you take a break. That's from the documentary. And then, of course, there'll be other things going on as well, because they're up there, they're laughing and they're saying, oh, yeah, we're going to keep her busy for years.
Yeah, I kind of knew that, actually. Although I don't know specifics necessarily about my own path. They'll tell me what they're going to tell me, but I've always felt like I would work well into my elder years. Like there wasn't going to be a retirement as people saw as traditional retirement. Maybe like from a regular job where you make a paycheck that way, but not from the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, I figure with me, and I've thought about, oh, God, is it time for me to retire? And I get this very strong, no, we don't think so.
Nope.
You still have all these other things to do. And then they'll throw an interest at me, something that I get really interested in. And it's like, oh yeah, forget it. I'm not going to retire yet. But exactly. I figure I'll probably still be going to the day I die.
Yeah, I've always felt that myself.
Yeah.
But it's stuff that I really love to do. Like, even though I don't know how to create films, I feel like it's just this learning activity. And each person I connect with teaches me something else. Like, because I feel like they put people in my path to help me along. And that's the part that I really love, the learning new things, the creative aspect of it. So maybe that's why I'm chosen to tell the story, because it's not a burden for me.
No. And they're telling me that they will send someone along to you to help you with the film part.
Oh, good.
Like with the editing, the putting it together as a film. And this person, like I say, they're being brought into your life to help you. And this is someone that you have known in a previous lifetime. Okay, so this is a soulmate. So that now they're telling me he, all right, so it's a male energy. And he's going to help you with all of this, and he's going to give you that little extra push that you're going to need. Because one of the things that they're showing, you don't mind me saying this on air, right?
No, go right ahead.
Okay. Because one of the things that they are showing me is that you're going to get to a point where you're really feeling overwhelmed with all of this. All right. Because it's a huge project.
It is.
And I think it's absolutely awesome that you're doing this. I really do. And I give you a lot of credit for it. But they're showing me a point where you're just going to get feeling so overwhelmed. And it's like, oh, Lord, like, I don't know, which way do I go next? And then this someone is going to come into your life and say, okay, sit down. This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. And then a third person will come in, and this is the one that's just going to say, okay, let's go. We're doing it. And
We're
this is
doing
how
it.
we do it.
And that's what I need, because that overwhelming feeling when I'm going through each interview, for example, trying to take out the clips that I know are important. I'm really good at that. Like, I know I can hear it in my head. I know how it's going to be. But the more you get, the more you get, the more you get. It's like,
That's right.
and I have to get the narrative going and the outside shots. So there's an overall narrative that's kind of pulling this all together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the technical part.
Yeah. So how long is this documentary actually going to end up being? I think it's longer than you anticipated.
I think it is. Originally I wanted it to be within a 2-hour time frame, like a typical film, length.
Uh-huh.
It's come to my attention, and I've gotten some advice from other people I've been interviewing, that maybe it would be smaller segments,
Yeah.
but based on, like, a theme running through the year, maybe in parts with different themes, almost like a Netflix series that's all downloaded at once, but you take it in different chunks.
Yes.
So it might go in that direction.
And that makes sense. That makes sense. Sometimes it's easier when you break things down and trying to do it that little section at a time rather than one big whole.
Right. It might be easier for people to digest as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the questions that you had asked me was, any predictions? What do I see for post 2020?
Mm-hmm.
And again, without giving any names, without giving a whole bunch of everything away, can you, and even maybe your own thoughts on what do you see for the next number of years, like after this?
Yeah. I'm going to come by. I think my thoughts are very similar to some of the thoughts of the other psychic readers. And keep in mind that the people I interview have a breadth of different kinds of abilities. So I like to see it as everybody is tapping into a piece of the puzzle. And that hopefully, when I put that segment together, we're all kind of putting together a picture that everyone seems to be picking up. Yeah. I would say overwhelmingly, it's the first part, especially as we go into the next year, 2024, maybe even into 2025, we see a real split energetically of, like, say, two different types of humans. And this is not to put down anyone. It's just, it is what it is. There are some people who are ready to move on to, say, a more sharing or communal way of living or interacting with one another. And there is another group that's more that individualistic, I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet, self-reliant type of energy, who might be a little bit more skeptical, maybe a little bit less connected. In a spiritual sense, I feel like they're more in tune with, like, organized religion, and that sort of thing. So they might have very definite boundaries around their spirituality. There seems to be 2 groups that are splitting off. There are going to be conflicts with these groups. I do see that the next couple of years, and this is worldwide, this isn't just Canada or the United States or, North America. I see this type of energy, I guess, throughout the world. And we're already seeing that. We're already seeing that kind of.
We are.
Yeah, like all across, even with, for example, the Palestine-Israel conflict. When you think about it, it's really based on this idea of the past. Some groups want to let go of the past. Let's come up with a 2-state solution. Let's, find a way to work in harmony. And then there are other people who are like, no, we want what we need because we deserve it. And both sides have good arguments for where they're coming from. It's just that when those 2 sides come together and they're not, that's when we get these conflicts. So I'm trying to, like, walk. I don't want to put anyone in fear or anything like that, but I do feel like there are going to be challenges. There are
Oh,
going to be
definitely.
little up there. There's going to be, little pockets of things people are going to have to deal with. That said, once we get through some of those conflicts, everyone seems to feel like at some point, as a group, as a human group, even though we have splits, we're moving to, I guess you could say, a more aware, a more communal, a more optimistic place. So things people are worried about, climate change, for example, there seems to be a sense that we're going to try to tackle that, or international conflicts. There are going to be really bad international conflicts, but it seems like we're going to make it through and make something better from it. So I'm not getting a lot of doom and gloom. Just
No,
it seems rather positive. It's going to take time, and it's not all roses. As
no.
like as someone said to me, like, we all volunteered here to be on Earth, and Earth is a dualistic planet for a soul. You're always going to be dealing with that sense of opposites. That's what we signed up for. That's why this is a planet for rapid growth as a soul. It's you got to have some grit to come down here, like to deal
Oh,
with
yeah.
what you need to deal with. That's probably never going to change. I don't get that changing, but where we're going seems very positive.
Yeah. I remember years ago now, and I'm talking what 40 odd years ago. Uh, the teacher that I had, Lizanne Gallo, uh, who is now in spirit, but she talked about this time. She she talked about a virus or something where a lot of people would die. She talked about conflicts and political conflicts more than what we have had in the past. She also said that, and her words were, they will not be allowed to destroy the earth. There will be an intervention. Now, she didn't say what the intervention was, but I mean, when you look at that, and I know one of the things I have learned over the years of doing this is that predictions aren't always what they seem to be. So you never assume anything in this field.
No.
And I remember at the time when she said there was going to be an intervention, I thought, oh, UFOs, they're coming down. They're going to come to us. And, yeah, hey, it might be, but it could be a group of people. It could be one person who steps in and says, this isn't going to happen. I have been given visuals. I have seen things that can happen to some of the political powers that are sort of in place over the next year or two. Not the healthiest, not the best for them, but better for the country. But it's one, and I was shown that there will be different groups. And I remember when she was telling us about it, she said a lot of people would die, and she looked directly at me and she said, and there are those that will survive to teach the old ways. And at first I thought, well, what are the old ways? Like, how do I know what the old ways are? But I think I do more than I realize, because again, it's looking into natural healing. It's even things that we grew up with that have changed so much.
Right. That's interesting you had said that, because I had just done a reading and I had a vision of a bridge generation, or a person that was going to step in as a bridge between old energies and new energies. And a lot of messages, you were talking about the old ways. There are a lot of things that were coming through that are very much worth preserving. And I'm not just talking about like living off the land or stuff, although there are a lot of homesteaders out there, and they're bringing back some of those old things, and those are important. But also I had gotten things that were just like about not living through technology, and values that we might have had too.
Yes.
Values that were concrete that might have gotten out of hand, but were about community and I don't know, you know what I'm getting at? Like,
I do,
yeah.
because that's something that I feel that we have lost.
Yeah, like there was
Sense of
something
community.
lost. I know community is part of it.
It is. And, I'll tell you another thing that's been lost is empathy,
Yes.
big time. Now, one of my clients who lives in another area in Canada, uh, she teaches primary grades. And she was telling me when the kids are all in the gym playing, if one person gets hurt, one of the children get hurt, where in the past, all the kids would all go around to make sure they were okay. Now they'll leave that child on their own and they'll go to the other end of the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody stays to see how that child, how badly they're hurt or to make sure they're okay. They just leave them and well, they're done, out of the way. Now we move on. And I mean, that to me is something that has really changed over the years. There's that loss of empathy. And you hear that with a lot of things and a lot of people.
Right. No, I agree. And I think that might be one of the things that needs to be preserved, or the way they say to bridge it. There
Yeah.
are people who might have grown up differently in which empathy was actually taught. There may be other generations where they have to learn later in life that they might not have had it innately part of their upbringing. That's
Yeah.
part of the bridge. It's like, what can you give to the newer generations?
Yeah.
And there are things. One of the messages I got this whole story about an older king who was bending to a small child in my last reading. And
Mm-hmm.
the king was passing on information and value to the child, but the end of the story was the king also learned something from the child. And the message was there's a time for change. Like some things need to change.
Yes.
If that was from the old ways too. So there was like a mutual learning from that metaphor that I was given. And I said, I thought maybe the child in what I was reading about was the United States, sort of like facing its new beginning. It's kind of like, let's take what the old, taught us, some of our old values, but there are some changes we have to make to adjust for the shift that's happened in the world.
Absolutely. And I know that this is something that has been coming up for me a lot in readings and when I'm reading for other people, but also readings that I'm doing for myself, that change and letting go of the past.
Yes.
Locking the door to the past so that you can move forward, going through that new door, not being afraid to. And so with what you're saying, it really does make sense.
Right. Part of too, like locking the door of the past, is that you must face the past.
Oh,
You have
yeah.
to face your responsibility, like ancestrally, for your parts in the past.
Yeah.
There has to be an element of forgiveness and acceptance of what happened, reparations, if possible. And I don't know how that would happen. It doesn't have to be money, but there's got to be something
Yeah.
that the other person feels like, okay, we acknowledged the horrors of the past. We can move forward from here and we're good, like in the old.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because if you move forward, but you don't fix the past,
right,
that's always going to be there to haunt you.
And it's a wound that people carry.
Yes. Yes. It's, when people want to come and see about relationships and they talk about getting back into a relationship was broken. And it's like, well, you can, but until you fix the problem, it's not going to work because the problem will always be there. And it's that same type of thing.
And that's what this 2020 video is really about. Like, people will be like, why would you want to look at 2020? It was horrible. I don't want to look at this. But my messages are, we must look at this.
Yeah.
We need to go through. We need to hear each other's stories. Maybe my story wasn't, dramatic. Like you, I didn't lose anyone and it was okay. But I have to hear the pain of other people too. I have to understand, depending on my race or where I lived or what country I was in or all of that, I might have had a different experience. And I need to hear that so that we can collectively heal and move forward.
That's right. All right. Now, Kerri, we're going to take a very short break. And then when we come back, I would like to move on to the spirit writing.
Sounds good.
And because that's fascinating. Anyway, don't go away because we'll be right back.
Long way from Nashville, and mama, I tell you that. Performed from Montreal to Boston to Los Angeles. But Toronto, that's my chosen home. Sure, when I'm walking down Yonge Street, I see some funny people who have the nerve to point the finger at me. And grin and smile and whisper. My song was #2 on local radio. Sold 10,000 in Toronto alone. Turned down Ed Sullivan because they asked me to remove my makeup. Wouldn't do American Bandstand because of their segregation policies. I was just being me, never tried to explain myself to anyone. And besides, none of that to worry, Jackie, because I know I look good. Got a new way of loving, baby. Thought I want to teach it to you.
Jackie Shane was a pioneer transgender soul singer, a central figure in the Toronto R&B scene. She helped shape what we know as the Toronto sound.
I still remember the games. The laughter, the footsteps through the hallway. I'll never forget the challenges.
Every day I come back from work, it's always like this. We're yelling in front of the kids.
I'll never forget the help we needed. How far we've come.
Hey, and we're back. Now, like I said, what I really want to talk about now is this spirit writing. I have done channeled writing in the past, and all my artwork is channeled through. So, the floor is all yours, Kerri.
So you want me to explain some of the process? And
Yeah.
you know what? I think the best way to explain what I'm doing is maybe explain my journey of how I got into this.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that this type of channeling appeals to people who may have already had an affinity for writing. So if you were the kind of kid who kept a journal or a diary, or you feel like writing was a good hobby for you, you very well might be more attuned to this way of receiving messages. You had mentioned the artwork, and I feel like there's a huge connection between spirit writing and creating with other mediums. My journey started actually with Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. I'm not sure if you are familiar with her book.
I am. I don't know if I still have it, but I used to have that book.
Yeah, I think it's over 25 years old now.
Oh, easy.
Easy. And she basically went through a variety of exercises to help people to open up and open that channel to create, no matter what your medium. One of her ways to connect with whatever you wanted to do was what she called morning pages. And I actually bumped into that book in the 90s. I read it crazily, started with the morning pages. So you have to understand, I was a school teacher at the time. I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning just so I can get in the shower, get my coffee, get to school, because my first class started at 7 a.m. And so so I'm going to try this morning page. It has to be in the morning, she says. You have to fill 3 pages of writing. So I would wake up even earlier, 4:30 in the morning. So I'm up. Keep in mind, I have 3 small children, a full-time job, but hey, we're going to do this morning page thing. At 4:30 in the morning, I would write every day. I had the whole ritual of music and a candle. And then one day, it was as if it was like radio frequency went off in my head. It was like I literally sounded like a radio when you're trying to tune into a station. That's how I experienced it. And I heard a voice, and it was like it just kind of came through, and it was that loud in my head. It was very, very strange. And from there, I realized a lot of what I had been writing seemed to be coming from another source. It was the first time that I was connecting what I was doing on the paper. I thought it was just a mind dump to, oh, I'm getting some other kind of information here. So that was the beginning of really making this an actual process. That went into tarot card reading, which I learned separately. And what I did is on my 40th birthday. It was kind of a depressing moment for me. I had just quit a job, the teaching job I had for a long time. It wasn't working for me.
Mhm.
It was my first time where I had like a year off to really reflect. What am I going to do from here? And I was poor, so poor, like no money. My mother gave me $25 for my birthday. And I took that money and I'm like, I should buy groceries right now, but darn it, I'm going to buy a deck of tarot cards. Don't know why I made that decision, but I did. Don't know anything. I mean, I've had readings before, but I didn't know anything about reading tarot cards. And what I did is I journaled on every single card, like for like 2, 3 months. I would observe, like, what am I seeing? What do I feel? Then I would read books and study what the actual meanings were. And then after that 3-month period, boom, I was reading professionally, just like that. So obviously I had done it in another lifetime or something like that. But again, the writing and the cards were connected. And then that moved to just recently, with intention, creating what I would call soul writing sessions, where my cards go out. I have a journaling meditation session, and I do that before everybody's personal readings. And then I answer their questions. And then I actually connect it with what I've already written down, because I'm asking their guides, what is it that you want them to know? So it's become a form of reading for people that seems to be a little bit more detailed. And I do my own personal soul writing every morning. In my journal, it's my quiet time with my coffee, just like the old days when I did morning pages, Julia Cameron's morning pages. Only this time I don't have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I can do that more on my natural biorhythm. And that's my process. That's how I do the spirit writing and how it evolved.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had questions, and then I was so intent listening to you that the questions just kind of boop, out of the way. But it's, with the channeling and what you're saying with the journaling every morning. Now, I don't do that. I am, and it's funny because this isn't something I have done, but this is something apparently I'm going to be doing. I'm taking some classes right now in neurographic art.
Ooh,
Oh,
explain that.
it is. I love it. And it's something I'm feeling right now. I want to sit here and I want to do it. But it's something that I believe I'm going to be doing every day. This is an example.
Wow.
And it tells a story. And this is my first one. This is my first piece. And I'm learning more about colors and all the different things, which is, I already have that understanding because of the jewelry, right? And the artwork. So this is, to me, it's just kind of taking it into the next step. But I'm getting that sense of, yeah, this is something I have to do one every day. Just sit, take my quiet time, and
Right. And because it becomes a form of meditation. That's how my writing is for me. And it doesn't have to be writing for some people.
no.
This could be soul painting or soul, whatever it is that you want to be doing. Because I've worked with a lot of artists who always say, it's like I'm downloading. When I get in that zone, they talk about it, the zone, and you're creating, it's as if you're just downloading what you need to be doing.
Absolutely. And I know with me, I get in that zone, and Russ just laughs at me because I am absolutely oblivious to everything that is going on around me. And he knows that when I'm working on my art, it's up to him to make dinner, to decide what we're going to have. Because if he thinks that I'm going to quit what I'm doing to stop and to even be aware of the time, he knows it just isn't going to happen.
Yes, and the time thing is really cool because I know you know this, but it's as if you're out of time. So that you could be in that, painting for say 3 hours, or for me, it would be writing, but it felt like, wow, time went by so fast. Like it felt like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like 3 hours went by. What happened? So you have this real shift with time when you're in that zone.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny, because they say that there is no time. Well, this is, excuse me, what my teacher taught me and well, taught us, but there is no timing on the spirit world. So what is a day to them can be a year to as much as a year to us.
Mhm.
You know, what's 5 minutes can be 5 hours. And so this is one of the reasons that when you're predicting it doing predictions, it can be difficult to get an exact time. It can be done. Sometimes it happens, but there's times you can be out a day, a month, whatever. And but again, it's all that thing that you're in, all of a sudden you're in that zone, you're in that other space where time doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I almost feel like I'm slightly out of my body. Now, this is my own personal experience,
Mhm.
but I kind of have this image as if this is my body in that moment when I'm like in that zone, it's as if my soul is like reaching upwards. I'm not out of my body. I'm not astro traveling, but I'm like, it's almost like I'm reaching up and they might be reaching down and we're meeting somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
And maybe that's why I'm experiencing the time shift because I'm not quite 100% in my body at that moment.
Right. Well, I know too, and I'm working with a series of different teachers. And, you know, they keep talking about the importance of as soon as I start, I hum. And this is something I started doing 2020. I didn't connect the dots on this one. But in 2020, when I was working with that's when I was really going with the encaustic. And I would start humming. And it's like I was gone, I was out of it, totally unaware of what was going on. But when anything is being channeled like this, that is like whether it's channel writing, whatever, I start humming. And that is my form of meditation.
It's interesting you're using sound, the hum, to kind of move yourself into a different state.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a way we get into, is it theta? Or
Theta, that's
theta.
correct. Yeah.
I actually listen to binary beat kind of music with the theta waves. And that's a way for me to get into that state, which is interesting. You're actually I'm doing it from an outside source, but you're almost creating something with the hum.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And when I've had the humming in my head, so after this, I'm at my art. But
it's time.
yeah, but you know, one of the, I get people, and I think that you'll agree with this, that they'll come and it's like, I want to be able to do this, and I don't hear if someone's trying to come through and I can't connect and I can't do this and it's just not working. When you try, and if you try too hard, it's not going to work. You really have to be in that relaxed.
Yes.
And it is with what you're comfortable with. When a number of years back, a lot of years back, when the idea of meditating really started coming into vogue, and all the meditation tapes and New Age tapes and all of that. And I tried some of them and none of them worked for me. I used to listen to classical music. And that was the only time I ever listened to it. But I was able to meditate for music easier than I could anything else. So I think it's a personal preference. Do it. And I'm sure that you have found that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But
that's why I was going to say, that's why I always preface that this is my experience.
Yes.
You can take from it what you would like to try, but in the
And if you try, there's no right way, there's no wrong way. It's accuracy. It's what works.
Mhm.
And what works for you will not necessarily work for me. What works for anybody, you know. I
Well,
get things very different. I'm very getting information and always end up different from everyone else. But for some reason, Lizanne wants me to talk about her and her classes, but she taught us how to do deep trance channeling, where we would actually go right down and whoever we were connecting with would actually speak through us. They would use our voice box.
right.
And she also used this deep trance channeling to take us to different places, to almost like a remote viewing type of. She wanted us to go to see this pyramid. So we all got down into this trance. This one part of the pyramid, and I'm like, well, where the heck are you? I don't see all of that stuff. And I was at the side. So in my visual, I wandered off and I found a waterfall. And oh, it was lovely. It was so peaceful. I sat there. And I walked in, and they were all describing what they saw, but what they saw was not what I saw. I saw something totally different. So at the end of it, Lizanne said to us, now for homework, I want you to find the secret door, the hidden door. And I went to her afterwards and I said, is that the one at the side that's got the tree by it? She said, yeah, I figured that's where you had gone. But apparently the waterfall that I saw actually does exist. So it was good because we were able to get confirmation on things like that. But that's why I say, and yeah, I just end up in different places.
That's awesome. I actually dabbled in the remote viewing. Like I took some classes on it to learn like the classic one, like the one uses that whole
Yes.
process. And it was very involved, very involved.
It is. There's not too far, like up where I live, someone up here who does remote viewing. And his first name is Morgan. I've had him on the show a few times. And I took a class with him, and it's really fascinating.
It is fascinating.
It is. I mean, they give you these coordinates.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, and with the pen, and then all the different steps you have to go through, and the drawings and the sketching. And
yeah,
I will say it did not feel natural for me, although I did have moments where I did pick up on some stuff. So I felt like, oh, okay, I'm okay. And then other times I guess I was too much in my head, or I was trying too hard, if that makes sense.
yes.
So
It
it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah. And, when we were doing it, there was one we were doing, and we were looking for a missing person. And me being me, I got all the emotions that went with it. And I had to stop. I sat there. I just cried my eyes out.
That's tough.
And so Morgan came over and he said, that's okay. Just put everything down and you're fine. But the empath came out. And sometimes you can't control.
Right. Right. That's why I think the remote viewers that are really, really good, almost they're not so empathic, or they found a way to really detach.
Yes.
And that's how they can get that information so quickly and without getting tripped up on the emotional aspects that might be coming through the place or whatever it is that they're looking at, the event in some cases.
Now, you're going to be, I might be ahead of you on this one. I'm not sure, but you teach classes, or you're going to be teaching some classes? I can't hear you. Okay, all of a sudden, you're silent. I don't know.
All right. My
Okay.
microphone is on. I have no power issues. Oh, internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Okay.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think, see, this is what happens when you live in the mountains.
It's okay. It happens when you live in the country too.
Yeah. Sorry about that. That must have been
Yeah.
my internet connection. So what was I just saying? What were we talking about?
I
Now
don't
I
know,
just
but
lost my.
obviously we've got to go in a different direction. But one thing that I do want to do, if somebody wants to get hold of you, how do they connect with you?
Please go to tarotsoulwriter.com. Everything that you need to know, my classes, my readings, my YouTube channel, anything else or ways to connect with me will be right there.
All right. And are you still looking for people to interview for your documentary?
I am. And actually on the website, it will say 2020 projects, schedule an appointment. Please go there if you're interested in being in my documentary. Click and that will lead you to a page to schedule an appointment with me. And I should be taking appointments through March.
All right. So, if you have an experience that you would like to share, and Kerri is very comfortable. She's very comfortable to work with. But if you have an experience that you would like to share, get hold of her. You may fill in. You never know. You might fill in some gaps.
You just might.
Yeah.
You just might.
Yeah. Yeah, it was upcoming classes. That's what I was going to talk about.
Yeah, upcoming classes. And I will say I've taught them in the past. And right now it's funny that things bleeped out just then because I said I really wanted to start them up again because they're great. We get to work as a group, we write together, we channel together through the cards. I teach you the whole process. And we've had some wonderful groups. But I put them on pause to work on this documentary. And of course, part of me really wants to start them up again. But apparently Spirit's saying, maybe you should just do the documentary right now.
Yeah, one thing at a time.
Yes, but the classes will be, if I start them up again and I know it's the right time, you'll know on my website.
Yeah. Oh, good. Because the time will come that you will teach and take some new classes too.
Yes. Already have some ideas in my head.
Yeah, well, see, there you go. All right. I'm just trying to think what else. There's so many things here. Now, are there other things that you are involved with?
I think I have to say no right now. And I think that is a blessing because the early Kerri, the Kerri who got up at 4:30 in the morning, was a workaholic who raised 4 children, had a full-time teaching job, also took extra jobs in the summer, and was an adjunct professor of a teacher of teachers. I've had 80 hours a week, everywhere, doing so many things. I finally got a space in my life, and I think coming here was part of it, the move to New Hampshire, to give me an environment where I'm away from distractions.
Yeah.
And could just sort of focus on my spiritual work. So it's just my husband and I right now. The kids have cleared out and are living their lives. And I think I have the space to just work on the things we discussed.
Yeah. So now you have your time, your life.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's good that you have something to do, because there's a lot of people I know that the kids leave home and it's like, and they retire and it's like, oh God, now what do I do with my life?
And I will say this is just me, but I've always been very self-contained. And so even though I made my children a big part of my life, obviously earlier and so forth, and even my students and my teaching, how do I want to say it? I've always had an inner life. I guess we could just leave it at that. I've always had interest and I've not been shy about being able to express those. So I've never had that empty nest. It's kind of like, woohoo, now let's go on to the next thing.
Well, yeah. And I know that that's, with a lot of things, I'm kind of the same way. It's like, okay, my turn.
Right.
Fine.
Now I can do this idea or this idea.
That's right. And there was still a lot of things I did when my kids were young. Like once they got into their teenage years, there were things that came up in life that I was able to do, and I did. And I think you have to.
Yes. I've always had that as well. Like my interest never went away just because I had kids. I was never so absorbed in their lives that I forgot about mine. But I also made their lives a priority.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like as a mother, you kind of have to. I mean,
you do.
I took charge of it. Somewhere out there, I made an agreement to bring those children in the world. And I felt like I needed to see that through until they're okay. And I know that job never really ends, but it's just different now. But I never felt like I had to sacrifice myself for them, if that makes sense. I'm sacrificing a part of our time.
Yes.
Because you need this now. But now you're taking care of some things on your own. So I can devote my time to other things.
Yeah, we have to. Now, one of the things that I'm being guided to do, because I have this little deck of cards too that I made. And these are affirmations and inspiration. And what I do, so I don't let other people shuffle these ones, but I will have them pick out 3 cards. Now, I'm doing this with the intention that these 3 cards are geared sort of generic to people that's listening. So if you connect with them, that's great. If not, well, we'll do it again another time and something will come up. But if all 3 may connect, only one may connect. The 3 cards that have come up is 1, as you believe, so it becomes. Which, if you believe that you're going to do something or something can happen, absolutely. And what's going with that one is believe in yourself and know you can. And it's funny because those 2 cards really work in hand. And I believe in magic. And, it's all around us.
Wow. I don't know if I have these handy. Oh, I think I do. But I played with your deck.
Oh, yeah.
Before I came. And I got these 3 cards. Time to move forward. Pay attention to your dreams. I don't know if you can see, believe in yourself and have the faith to make your dreams come true.
Yeah.
And I had asked the question, how is this going to go? What's going to be the main theme? What's going to come out of this? What do you want to say? That kind of thing. And I feel like those 2 messages really go together.
They do. But
connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Hello, I'm Liz Dowdswell, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. In 2008, carbon monoxide, a deadly invisible gas, killed an entire family in our province. That tragedy led to a new law requiring homes with potential CO sources to have alarms. John Gignac's family members passed away that day, and he shares his story to save others.
Please make sure you have working CO alarms in your home. Protect your family today.
The Hit UK show is back with a brand new season.
I'm so happy to be back.
12 unusual suspects go undercover.
I was blown away. That was amazing. It was popping.
Can you unravel the clues and guess who is behind the mask?
Kim Cattrall.
It could be Sting.
Okay.
Everyone, who's behind the mask?
No.